Chapter 2. Early Education. Sophie was brought up strictly Anglican, but much of the New World's teachings reached her through her tutors, instructors, and the occasional pop treasures Jamie had plundered on his trips into town. She had grown up behind the ancient walls of Windsor Castle and seldom traveled to the towns and big cities of the world, but she was keenly curious and deeply aware of the living cultures of the world. Though she had never set foot in Africa, she knew exactly where each country lay and the names of the major capitals and trade hubs. Her intense curiosity had led her to consume the literatures of nearly every major modern language and even some remote ones. Nothing was too distant or too irrelevant to her. She hungered for unusual linguistic experiences and riches like others in her age longed for objects of luxury and fame. The allure of temporary fashion was not lost on her, of course. Sophie identified with the models completely and even indulged in the games of fashion readily, but language was infinitely more satisfying. Only the prettiest verse could still her insatiable hunger for beautiful experiences. In words, she had discovered the world, and no travel could replace the adventures and exalted pleasures she had tasted there. All beyond her ears, she never held her mind back from exploring whatever presented itself to her attention. The most enduring character-defining habits are, after all, formed early in life, but her choices were far from haphazard. Much like a trained and learned academic, Sophie focused her private obsessions and followed a structured approach to gaining insight and information about them. But unlike academics, she was not fettered to formats and the need to gain and preserve power, nor did she have to streamline her arguments to support ideological imperatives that were deemed infallible. Her knowledge gained considerably in depth and independent design during her long hospital sojourns. It was almost as if she was building an intricate engine in her mind which would approach all objects, relationships, and events she was confronted with in a singular manner to transform them into significant players in her universe. Every object she encountered was considered carefully and invested with as much libidinal energy as she could spare. At the royal receptions, she and Jamie had met older generation pop stars and had been taught respect for all forms of contemporary arts, even for academically insignificant popular forms. But they were kids who picked their own heroes. The two had their favorite contemporary pop performers and spent hours stolen from study and sports, sharing their latest obsession. They had devoured the history of pop, and though classically trained in basic musical literacy, fully participated in the youth culture of the day. Later, in college, Sophie would develop a keen interest in psychoanalysis, which she found the only compatible philosophical discipline to understanding the phenomena of the popular imagination, which it would be her responsibility to fashion as first in line to the throne. It would be her duty to support and nourish it, not only materially and from the distance of classical taste and learning, but with her heart and soul. Pop royalty, as they were called, though not landed, shared the same airwaves with them, the same formats and representation and design. People identified with them, admired them, and learned to articulate their values and emotions through their works. The common folk looked up to them for moral guidance, for artists are the brief chroniclers of the times, as the bard himself had written. And time, as Beethoven once said, was the noblest of human possessions. Indeed, she thought, it was the only object left to the care and fashion of men. Eternity was divine, and all temporality had to conform to the endless revelations of timeless beauty if it were to survive the gruesome tests of time. But time, the earthly remains of immortality, was entirely a human choice and a human creation. She understood the fashioning of time as her main responsibility.